sure about what I should be saying to you. I've come only because I love you, and it's a privilege to be with fellow teachers from whose labor of love people like us benefit. We get good students because of you, for which we are grateful. I thought it would be appropriate for us to spend some time, maybe 30 minutes or so, asking a simple question. What does it mean to be a teacher? Who is a teacher? What does it mean to be a teacher? This question is important because Jesus is indisputably the teacher of teachers, the teacher with a capital T. And if Christian community all over the world has made contributions in the field of education far in excess of its numerical and material wealth, it's mainly because of this fact that Jesus prioritized teaching over everything else. Therefore, in the vision that Jesus of Nazareth had, education was a great priority and perhaps the greatest undertaking a human being could imagine. It's important that these basic things are stated because, for want of this, teachers all over the country entertain, nurse, or suffer from a sense of underprivilege. In the last 30 years, I have interacted with teachers virtually in all parts of the country because I have a very special concern for teachers, being one among them. And it's been my invariable experience that teachers feel marginalized, socially unimportant. They feel the work that they do is not recognized. Their work has no glamour. They have no visibility. Perhaps their work is not adequately remunerated. And the list goes on. While there is a lot of truth in all of these, I believe that the fundamental issue is something else. And that issue is that perhaps we do not know what it means to be a teacher. Or what it means to teach. I'm going to share some basic thoughts with you, not in any elaborate fashion. I'm going to suggest certain things, hoping that you will continue to ponder over them and maybe discuss them in small groups, even after we end the session, maybe in the days ahead. I asked myself this question: why did I become a teacher? All my people wanted me to be a civil servant. I was arguably the brightest in the entire family circles. I was a gold medalist from Kerala University. Came to Delhi for my postgraduate studies. In the transition, of course, I lost start. I was only number 3. And those days, civil service was the norm. I preferred to be a teacher. Why did I do that? I must say this to you, that the greatest influence in my life has been that of Jesus of Nazareth. My model, my role model as a teacher is Jesus. Forget about the religious part. I'm only going to talk about the pedagogic part. So those who are from other faiths need not feel uncomfortable. What did I find in Jesus of Nazareth? First of all, I found in him I have a problem with my throat, chronic problem. I found him an amazing ability to see. Jesus could see. You might wonder what is so great about it. After all of us see. Of course we see. But the question is, what is it that we see? Human greatness depends almost entirely on what we see. All of our actions, all of our responses, our plans and priorities, what we achieve or do not achieve, our stature or lack of it, all these things depend on what we see. Let me give you one or two illustrations, then this will become very clear. One day, Jesus was walking, and in the course of his walking, he reached the office of customs, where custom or tax was received, a tax collection office. There was a man by name Levi sitting there. I don't know if you have ever gone to pay tax. I have. The relationship between a person who goes to deposit the tax and the person who receives the tax is disappointingly subhuman. There's no human concourse, human interaction possible. It's as though you are actually talking to a piece of machine. What do you see in him? What have I seen in him? I have seen in him only a man whose entire life is confined to this mechanical motion of accepting a certain amount of money and issuing a receipt. That's all I have seen. But Jesus saw in this man the potential of becoming a great author, and he became the author of the first gospel. That is what a teacher must have. The ability to see hidden potential in every student. There is the story of a German teacher in a high school. You know, in Germany, teachers are in great respect. They carry a lot of authority. They carry themselves in a very august manner. Nobody can trifle with them. And students are obliged to show great courtesy towards a teacher. This teacher, every day, as he entered the classroom, would bow down to his students, which was extremely unusual by German standards. So a person got very curious and asked him, "Sir, why do you do this?" Then he said, "Who knows what these children will become in course of time? Who knows what lies hidden in their hearts? What greatness, what possibilities?" He was right. One of them was Sigmund Freud. Now, if teachers do not have the special eyes to see the possibilities in the children entrusted to them, their work will become very monotonous. If they actually do this, if they can see, it would not matter much to us how much salary we get. Of course, we have our material needs. But teaching is the one profession, in my opinion, which is not bound by income, or where income is not in terms of money, but in terms of the great excitement of building lives. A leper went to Jesus, stood at a great distance, and said to him, Master, if you say the word, I'll be cleansed, I'll be healed. Now, according to the Jewish custom, a leper was unclean and nobody should touch him. If anyone touched him, he was ceremonially impure for 7 days and he had to undergo all kinds of elaborate rituals of purification. Jesus reaches out his hand and touches him. Why did he do so? Because he could see something. Behind the ruined skin and the puckered nose and the broken stubs of the fingers, behind the leprous skins, he could see a human being. And therefore the man will be healed, no question about it. That's the power of a teacher. A teacher must be a healer. We are living at a time when doctors have assumed great importance, right? Doctors are virtually the culture heroes. There was a time when pastors, priests used to be the center of a community. Priests have lost their centrality almost completely, pathetically. Then doctors. Doctors are considered next only to God. Now, a doctor can heal only individuals, if at all. Actually, doctors do not heal. Doctors only cure. And that too in a very limited number of cases. We highly exaggerate what medical sciences can do. The usefulness of medical sciences to the humankind is very limited. I come from a family of doctors. I'm the only non-doctor in my house. But I say this as a patient. For the last 35 years, I have lived with all my problems. No doctor, no medical science has been able to help me. But I have learned by the grace of God to cope with them and not let any one of them stand in the way of my productivity and fruitfulness. Anyway, a doctor can only cure individuals. A teacher can cure societies. A school is a social hospital. A school is a place, a college is a place where a society is healed. Provided teachers know the profundity of the work that they do. If we don't, then of all the workers, we are the most miserable. We get so easily demoralized. The second thing I found in Jesus of Nazareth is his amazing creativity. It's incredible how creative he was. That taught me that you cannot be a teacher if you don't have and develop creativity. A mechanical teacher is a contradiction in terms. A mechanical teacher is a liability to oneself first. The sign of becoming a mechanical teacher is a sense of burden. The moment you lose your creativity and the moment you become mechanical in your approach to and practice of your vocation, you begin to feel burdened. You ask an artist who may stand and do the painting for 10 hours on his feet, he'll never complain. You know, the Last Supper was painted on the ceiling in over 10 years, lying upside down. What is that labor? How can you compensate that kind of a labor? I think the greatest punishment a human being can invite upon oneself is to turn or degrade one's work into a burden. This can be done only by oneself to oneself. Nobody can make my work a burden for myself. Suppose, instead of working for 5 days a week, I am asked to work 6 days a week. When I was a teacher, I worked only 5 days. Now I work 6 days for the week. I have absolutely no sense of burden. On an average, I put in 60 hours of work per week. My colleagues teach 16 hours or 14 hours a week. I work 60 hours a week. And I am the happiest man in college. Because I love my work. Because I can express myself through my work. Because I can see opportunities, scope, potential. I can be creative. And whatever I do, exercising my creativity is not a burden, but a celebration. When I stand up to make a speech, I celebrate life. Actually, I'm under medical advice not to speak. I was for the last 2 years, 3 years. I have a growth on my vocal cord. But I cannot but speak. I would rather drop down dead speaking than remain quiet and live 10 years more. If God has put some ideas and insights into me, I am duty bound. I am accountable to Him. And I must share it with as many people as possible. How can that be a burden? How can that be not a celebration of life? But this is possible only when we make sure that we remain in the domain of creativity. For example, I was part of the 2005 NCF, National Curriculum Framework team. And I was chairing the National Focus Group on Peace Education. This whole idea of integrating peace education. Now, to integrate peace into any lesson you teach, whether it is English or chemistry or mathematics or history or economics, whatever, you need imagination. And a student immediately knows whether a teacher is creative or not. And a student loves a teacher who is creative. And a teacher who is creative commands respect and authority. The discipline does not exist as a problem. There's nothing called discipline problem. If at all there is something that we call as discipline problem, it is a failure of imagination. When a teacher stands up to teach, the students must forget themselves. And this is connected to the first point I made, namely the eye to see what remains hidden. That is when the student is continually overwhelmed by the delight of discovery. And every child will be mesmerized. My greatest prayer for you is that you experience this bliss. And I learned this from Jesus of Nazareth. When Jesus taught, lives were changed. Nobody who ever went to Jesus, other than two cases, nobody other than these two cases, whoever went to him, returned unchanged. That is called teaching. A teaching that does not bring about radical and enduring changes in the students is not teaching. Unfortunately, in our times, many people think that teaching means the covering of the syllabus. The syllabus must be covered. Why don't you cover the syllabus with a basket? Or with a piece of towel? That's also covering. Why don't you discover the syllabus? Why don't you allow or enable the students to discover something in the syllabus? For God's sake, abandon the word, cover the syllabus, discover the syllabus. You know, the same idea can be shared or expressed in 100 ways. The same sentence can be structured in 20 ways. The scope is unlimited. So, in our times, particularly when, because of the ascendancy of the consumerist spirit, consumerist culture, the creative genius is declining. All of us will be infected by that epidemic. And therefore, it is all the more important for us to be mindful of this essential qualification, eligibility requirement in a teacher, namely, I must be creative. And it is eminently feasible to do so. You try it out. Now, one aspect of creativity is manifesting the hidden. Right? Now, I have watched an artist standing and painting. It's a magical thing, actually. How slowly something takes shape. But before that shape finds its place on the canvas, it already exists in his mind. So with the external activity, he is only manifesting the hidden. Before an artist begins the recital of a raga, the raga does exist within himself. When he does the recital, he is only manifesting the hidden. What is hidden in the mind and the being of a student? The whole universe. And as teachers, we are helping them to manifest, helping them to bring to light what is hidden in a child. The textbooks prescribed or the exercises required are all very inadequate, pathetically inadequate means to do it. A teacher must have far greater resources than the prescribed book or exercise to do this. In fact, the teacher is the syllabus. The teacher is the curriculum. Ours is the one profession, other than priesthood, in which who we are is more important than what we say. And I'll close on this for want of time. I want you to listen to me very, very patiently on this. Suppose you are a journalist, the most successful journalist, being paid 10 lakhs a month. Some of the journalists are paid even more than that. It doesn't matter what kind of a person you are. All it matters is that you should be able to make the right kind of noise, like Arnav Goswami. Noise, noise, noise. And there is a whole nation waiting to lap up noise. Fine, no problem. Suppose you are an engineer. It doesn't matter what you say. What matters is whether you have some technical knowledge and skill. But that's not how it is with us. Why? Because ours is a profession in which the work we do is no longer in the space out there. We are working inside the children. And that's called the holiest of the holies, the sanctuary. A teacher is a high priest or high priestess in a sanctuary, the most sacred place. The work we do is sacred. And in the sacred space, there is no room for what is dirty, unclean. Everybody should know this. Now, what is dirty and unclean from a spiritual point of view? The spiritual understanding is very different from the worldly understanding. What is ugly in the sight of God is hypocrisy. You know, Jesus tolerated everything else except hypocrisy. Jesus said to the Pharisees that prostitutes will enter the kingdom of God before you. You have no hope. Why? Because you are hypocrites. Now, who is a hypocrite? Hypocrite is a word of Greek origin. In the Greek language, the word hypos actually meant an actor. An actor. Who is an actor? One who pretends to be what he is not. If you are an actor, you can do the role of the President of India. But once the curtain comes down, the costume will be taken away from you. So therefore, how does a teacher become a hypocrite? By being a teacher only in the classroom. It's as though the classroom is a stage, the teacher is an actor or actress who puts on some costumes, the teaching costume, and the moment the bell rings, the costume falls down and back to square one. The point I'm making is, in my very sad realization, and I say this with a broken heart, a majority of teachers all over the country are simply vegetating. They are not growing in their domain knowledge, they are not growing in their stature as human beings. How can you inspire the students entrusted to you to grow if you don't grow continually? How can a dead body guide a living person? Jesus said, the blind cannot lead the blind. A teacher will become a hypocrite if he or she does not maintain the same discipline that he or she maintained when that person was studying hard for the examination. Every day of life, a person who is not passionately committed to developing himself, growing in domain knowledge, in stature, in moral stature, in spiritual stature, I'm afraid cannot be a teacher. That person can be a servant of the syllabus, but cannot be a teacher. Servants of the syllabus can say, yes, I have covered the syllabus. But a teacher cannot say that. It will have very deep roots. Why? Because that tree is exposed to the gales of the season, strong winds. The wind will come and shake it. And if it does not send its roots deep down, it will just collapse with a crash. God has appointed only one way for any human being to develop stature, and that is by facing resistance. I wish I had the time to explain the significance and gravity of what I have just mentioned to you. By the way, anything which is meaningful, valuable and significant involves resistance. I am using this wooden lectern. Once upon a time, this was a tree. Somebody went and cut the tree down and the tree became timber. The log of timber was taken to a sawmill, it was cut. At all stages there was resistance. Then the cut logs were brought to the carpenter. The carpenter worked on it, again resistance. The carpenter then put it to shape, resistance. Someone gets up and makes a speech. It's not easy. Why? Because the medium resists. The resistance of language is really great. And it's over a long period of time that you master that resistance. In contrast to this, the philosophy of modern life is to take the line of least resistance. That includes cheating, telling lies, especially cheating on work, being dishonest, making sure that one is not found out, getting away with everything, insincerely agreeing with everyone, flattery, anything and everything that saves one's skin, as though a human being is only a kilogram of skin. Is there nothing more to me than my skin? Why am I so bothered about my skin? If I am only skin, I should not be a teacher. A teacher must have stature. And that's called authority. That's what Jesus had. Whenever he taught, people said, he teaches not like the scribes and Pharisees. He teaches like one having authority. Why? Because Jesus was more than skin. He never took the line of least resistance. He took the most difficult path, the path of the cross. You think of Jesus without the cross? Nothing. The greatest temptation that we face in our times, and you're also mothers and fathers, how will you raise your children? For God's sake, tell me. You could be committing the most deadly mistake in your life today. Do you spare your children of difficulties? Do you make life too easy for them? Do you serve like their servants? Do you pamper them? Do you protect them from the burdens of life? Are you afraid of telling your children the struggle of your life? What is your idea of bringing up your children? Don't you know the children are given to you to be partners with you in the struggle of life? Why should I have tears and not my tears fall into the soul of my son or my daughter? We are ruining our children. Our children will have no stature. Now, father was telling me that in our community, boys do not study at all, girls surge ahead. Why? Because of the bad nurture. We spoil our boys. We favor them. We practice partiality on them. We give them a wrong idea of life. We ruin them. We are doing a great disservice to them. Put your sons to work. make them sweep, mop the floor, let them cook in the kitchen, let them work in the field. What's wrong about it? You are ruining your children. You must pray that God may grant your children stature, not pleasure. And there is no other way except facing resistance in life. Why has the good Lord, the benign God, put difficulties in the life of people? Because He's sadistic? That's the only way you and I will grow. The last 8 years of my life, many people have great sympathy for me, saying, "Oh, you have suffered a lot." I have been in ecstasy because that's how I have grown. I thank God daily for the hard times I go through every day. And I cannot have enough of it. I don't want an easy way. I don't want the line of least resistance because that is death. Jesus said, narrow is the way that leads to eternal life, and very few people choose it. Broad is the way that leads to eternal damnation, and many will walk it. But as parents, which way will you point your children? I'm not talking to you as teachers, as parents. Today, if it is not too late, please ask this question. I say this to you because in the last 30 years, I have seen the Indian subcontinent drown. Can take that away from you. It's not a small thing to be a teacher. I think it's the greatest vocation to be a teacher. I've tried many things. I've been in public life. I've worked with the government of India. I've worked with the media. I've been an author. I'm a priest. I've had a hectic life as a preacher all over the world. But at the end of the day, I came back to teaching. So I know the greatness of it. So, my only prayer is that if we have come together today, it's not an accident. There is a purpose. Many of you I know are standing at the crossroads in your life. I know it. I may have come here only just now, but if I have stood before you in the name of God and spoken to you, I know what's happening in your hearts. Many of you are standing at the crossroads. Please remember this. Never, for God's sake, take the line of least resistance. Bring up your children the hard way. Do not protect them from reality. Enable them to grow in their body, mind, and soul. Do the same for the children entrusted to you in the school. God bless you. Thank you.